Alright guys, we got the motherboard removed, and I'll show you close up those capacitors that are swollen on this particular motherboard right here. Now this is a name brand compact desktop. It's probably manufactured in probably about 2003 or so, and generally the capacitor plague didn't really become prevalent until around 99 to even now, and they're still putting these back capacitors on motherboards today. God knows why, but you know, definitely if you're looking into buying a motherboard, make sure it's a reputable name brand that uses, you know, high quality parts. But yeah, if your computer is manufactured anywhere between 99 and today, this could be an issue that you're having. And this particular motherboard has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 swollen capacitors. So this one is not going to be fun or easy to fix. But what I'll do is I'll go ahead and show you how to remove one capacitor and replace that. And if you have more, if you want to take the time and replace it yourself, or if you want to get a quote from a technician, or replace it altogether, if it's just too much of a hassle for you, I wouldn't blame you. But yeah, alright, I'll go ahead and show you how to remove the capacitors and replace them. Alright guys, so the first step is to figure out what type of capacitor you need to replace the back capacitor with. What microfarads does it need, what voltage is it. So how you determine that is to actually look at the capacitors up close, and you'll see numbers on the side of the capacitor. What you'll see is generally a number before V, and that stands for how many volts it is, and then you'll see a number before what is looks like a U and a capital F, and that is the microfarads. So this is exactly what we're trying to determine what the new capacitor is going to be. So this particular swollen capacitor, which is the same as all the swollen capacitors on this board, what it is a 6.3 volt 820 microfarads capacitor, and you're going to want to make sure that the capacitor is the same diameter. You know, in the sense of how tall it is, it generally doesn't make too much of a difference when we're talking about motherboards. It can in small spaces, but generally you want to get the exact same type of capacitor to replace it with. And not the same type, but the same type. So, alright, so now that we determined what type of capacitor it is, we can go on and replace it. One thing I did forget to mention, guys, is that is the tools that you're going to have for this job. You're going to want a good soldering station, a good soldering gun, one that, you know, you're probably going to want one that has a temperature control on it, so you can just monitor the output. And generally, you want your soldering iron to be between 350 and 400 degrees. And you're also going to need solder, and it wouldn't hurt to get what's called a solder sucker or a desoldering. I'm not sure what the word would be. Just a desolderer. To actually get the solder off of the existing one. Because what we're going to end up having to do, as I'll show you in a little bit here, is we're going to have to tin the solder that's already on the bottom of the capacitor and try to suck it off. I want to show you two different methods. We can try the solder sucker, and if that doesn't work, we'll try the more dangerous method that could harm the motherboard or the capacitor, but sometimes it's the only option that you got. So, alright. Now that we actually have the capacitor that we're going to use for changing it out, we can go ahead and get started. Now, it's a good idea to have rubber gloves if you're dealing with lead solder, which is generally the best solder to work with, only because it adheres better. And if you are using, you know, any solder, it's always good to wear gloves. But if you are using lead solder, or, you know, solder that, you know, when you're dealing with solder, you're going to be dealing with usually a rosin core, and you're dealing with like a flux core. That flux can be dangerous to your lungs, so you're going to want to have good ventilation. Have you a little fan or something in your solder station, just to kind of move the fumes away from your face. so you don't breathe them in. It's it's definitely not good for your lungs to breathe that type of stuff in. But anyways, after that little warning, we'll go ahead and get started and taking the capacitors off. So what you want to do is you want to determine exactly where the leads are from this capacitor on the back of the board. Generally, or always, electrolytic capacitors have two leads, just two legs going directly through the board. You'll see the little spikes, little pins coming out the other side. So we want to determine exactly where this capacitor's pins are on the board. And generally it's very easy to find. It's these right here. You can just line it up like that, and then you can see exactly which ones it is. So these are the pins that we're going to want to be desoldering. So what you want to do is you want to do what's called tinning the connection. And what tinning the solder does is it heats up the existing solder that's on there, adds more, and by adding a little bit extra solder, it'll make it easier for us to suck it out with a solder sucker. So we determine which capacitor needs to be replaced. Then we get our solder in hand, and we get our soldering iron in hand. And what we're going to do is we just want to tin it. So we just kind of want to add a little bit of extra solder to the bottom pins here, just enough so it remelts the solder that's around the pin. It'll be easier to get out. Once you do that, you're going to get your handy dandy solder sucker right here. So these do come in handy, but more often than not, this method doesn't work. So I'll actually show you the other method as well, but we'll go ahead and go over this one because this is the better and safer way to remove capacitors or general components off your board. So what you're going to do is you want to hold the soldering iron on one of the leads to melt the solder, and you want to put the solder sucker right next to it and suck up the solder, and that usually sucks a lot of the solder off the leads and makes it easier to get out. So you can do that a few times. I pretty much guarantee you it'll take more than just one shot at it. I know for a fact that it'll take you a lot more than that. These things aren't very reliable. These are really good for DC jack replacements on laptops, which is probably a subject that I'll be covering in a video later. So you just kind of go back and forth, and the idea is to be able to get all the solder sucked off the leads here, and just be able to pull the capacitor off. And that really doesn't work. The method that I use more often than not is what I call the seesaw method, and there's probably a name for it. And basically that is to gently rock the capacitor back and forth until both the legs come out. Now you got to be really gentle with it when you do that, because you can pull the leads directly out of the capacitor, and you can even mess up the board by doing it. But it's generally the best way to go about removing a capacitor. So what you do is you heat up one side of the leg, and you slightly move that capacitor this way to loosen it, and you go to the next leg, and you do the same, and you kind of go back and forth in this type of motion. Be really gentle because you don't want to break it, and only pull on the side that you're heating up, and just kind of go back and forth. And more often than not, this is definitely the method that I use. And there you go. We got our capacitor removed. Alright, so about putting the capacitor on the board, this is one thing that I forgot to mention as well. Generally, the capacitor, the actual place where you plug in the capacitor on the PCB or on your motherboard, is indicated by a circle, and half the circle being white and half of it being the color of the PCB generally. And you want to match that white side up with the white. It's usually a white line on the capacitor. Sometimes half the capacitor is white, and that's how you indicate which side of the capacitor goes in which hole. See? You want to line up the white with the white side. Okay, with putting capacitors back in, usually the easiest method is to do exactly what you did to get the capacitor out, and that is to do the seesaw method. But now that you're actually replacing it with a good capacitor, this is when you really need to be careful and not put too much force on the capacitor. So what I'm going to do is going to heat up one hole to get the leg to go through, and heat up the other. until we have a good capacitor, nice and solid, soldered onto the motherboard. And that's how you replace an electrolytic capacitor. Alright guys, I hope that helped you out. Let me know if you have any questions, if you need any help, any suggestions, anything like that. I definitely look, if you have issues with your computer in the sense of it shutting down at random times, or just even if it's just running slow, it's always a good idea to check to see if you have swollen capacitors. And always keep your computer nice and cleaned out. I generally recommend to get an air compressor and air can to your computer, at least 4 times a year or so. And a thing to keep in mind also, a quick tip, if you are using an air compressor on a computer, or if you're using a can of air, when you're spraying the air on a fan, a system fan, your CPU fan, case fan, be sure to put a finger in there to stop the fan from spinning, because if you speed that fan up with an air can, it can do damage to your system fan. It can make the fan spin faster than what it's supposed to be, too many RPMs, and that can actually mess up the bearings in your fan. So yeah, keep that in mind. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I really hope this was a help to somebody out there that might have needed it. And yeah, if you need anything, message me, comment. If you like this video and you want to see more in the future, like, subscribe, comment, do what you got to do. Thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it.